What happens when the convenience of rideshare technology becomes a gateway to your worst nightmare? When the trusted app on your phone connects you not with safe transportation, but with predators who have learned to exploit the very system designed to protect you? How well do you really know the person behind the wheel when you climb into their car at 2 a.m., trusting them with your location, your safety, and sometimes your life? These aren't cautionary tales from paranoid social media posts, but documented accounts of real Uber rides that turned into horrifying ordeals, revealing that the gig economy has created new opportunities for criminals to access victims in ways that were impossible before smartphones put dangerous strangers just a tap away. The notification popped up on Jessica Martinez's phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night in downtown Austin, Texas. Your driver Marcus will arrive in 3 minutes. She was standing outside 6th Street's most popular club district, exhausted after celebrating her friend's birthday and ready to get home to her apartment near the University of Texas campus. The October air was crisp, and Jessica pulled her jacket tighter as she watched other late-night revelers stumble out of bars and call their own rides home. Jessica was a 23-year-old graduate student in psychology, smart and safety-conscious, who always followed the rideshare rules that had become second nature to young women living in major cities. She checked the license plate number, confirmed the driver's photo matched the person behind the wheel, and made sure her phone was charged and her location services were on. These precautions had become as automatic as checking for her keys before leaving home, part of the modern ritual of urban nightlife survival. When the silver Honda Accord pulled up to the curb, Jessica verified that the license plate matched the one shown in her app and approached the passenger side. The driver, a man in his early 30s with a beard and baseball cap, rolled down the window and asked, "Jessica?" She nodded and got into the back seat, settling in for what should have been a routine 15-minute ride to her apartment complex. "How's your night going?" Marcus asked as he pulled away from the curb, his voice friendly and conversational. Jessica gave a polite response about the birthday celebration and pulled out her phone to text her friends that she was safely in her Uber and on her way home. It was a habit she developed after reading too many news stories about rideshare incidents, a small safety measure that made her feel more secure about traveling alone at night. But as Marcus merged into traffic and began driving toward the university area, Jessica noticed that the route displayed on her app didn't match the streets they were actually traveling. Instead of taking the direct path to her apartment, Marcus was driving in the opposite direction toward a part of Austin that Jessica didn't recognize, and that seemed to be getting more isolated with each turn. "Excuse me," Jessica said, leaning forward slightly. "I think you might be going the wrong way. My apartment is near campus and we seem to be heading away from the university." Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror, and Jessica noticed that his expression had changed from friendly to something that made her stomach tighten with anxiety. "GPS is acting up," he said. "I know a shortcut that'll get you there faster. Don't worry about it." But Jessica was beginning to worry very much. She checked her phone again and saw that they were now driving through an industrial area on the outskirts of Austin, far from any residential neighborhoods and definitely not on any reasonable route to her destination. The businesses they passed were closed and dark, and there were fewer and fewer cars on the road as Marcus continued driving away from the city center. "I really think there's been a mistake," Jessica said, her voice becoming more insistent. "Can you please just follow the GPS to my address? I'm not comfortable with this detour." Marcus didn't respond immediately, and when he did speak, his tone had become cold and threatening. "We're going to take a little ride first," he said. "I suggest you sit back and stay quiet." The words sent a chill of pure terror through Jessica's body as she realized that she was not in an Uber with a legitimate driver, but was being kidnapped by someone who had somehow infiltrated the rideshare system. Her mind raced through her options as Marcus continued driving toward increasingly remote and isolated areas where screaming for help would be useless and escape would be nearly impossible. Jessica's first instinct was to call 911, but when she tried to access her phone, she discovered that Marcus had somehow activated a signal jammer that was blocking her cellular service. Her phone showed no bars and no data connection, cutting off her ability to call for help or to share her location with friends or family who might be able to assist her. The realization that Marcus had come prepared with equipment to isolate his victims was terrifying, as it indicated that this was not an impulsive crime, but a premeditated kidnapping carried out by someone with experience and planning. Jessica understood that she was dealing with a sophisticated predator who had studied the rideshare system and had developed methods for exploiting its vulnerabilities. As the car continued traveling through dark and empty industrial areas, Jessica tried to memorize details about their route and about Marcus himself that might be useful if she survived to report the crime. She noted that he had tattoos on his hands, a scar on his neck, and an air freshener hanging from his rearview mirror that had a distinctive smell. She also tried to pay attention to the turns they were making and the landmarks they passed, hoping to create a mental map that might help law enforcement locate the area where she was being taken. Marcus eventually turned into what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse complex, driving through gates that stood open and approaching a large building that showed no signs of recent use or habitation. The isolation of the location was complete. There were no other vehicles, no lights in nearby buildings, and no indication that anyone would hear or respond if Jessica attempted to call for help. When Marcus parked the car and turned off the engine, Jessica knew that she was facing a critical moment that would determine whether she survived the night. Her psychology training had included studies of criminal behavior and victim survival, and she understood that her actions in the next few minutes could mean the difference between life and death. "What do you want?" Jessica asked, trying to keep her voice steady and non-threatening while also projecting confidence and strength. Her academic knowledge of criminal psychology suggested that appearing either too weak or too aggressive could escalate the situation in dangerous ways. Marcus turned around to face her directly, for the first time since the ride had begun, and Jessica saw an expression that confirmed her worst fears about his intentions. "I want you to get out of the car and walk toward that building," he said, pointing toward the warehouse. "If you try to run or scream, you'll regret it." Jessica's mind raced through her options as she realized that complying with Marcus's demands would likely result in her being taken to a secondary location where escape would be impossible and where no one would ever find her. Every piece of safety advice she had ever heard about abduction situations emphasized the importance of never allowing an attacker to take you to a secondary location, as survival rates dropped dramatically once a victim was isolated in a space controlled by their attacker. "I'm not getting out of this car," Jessica said firmly. "If you're going to hurt me, you'll have to do it here where someone might see or hear what's happening." Marcus's response was immediate and violent. He lunged toward the back seat, attempting to grab Jessica and force her out of the vehicle. But Jessica had been preparing for this moment during the drive, and she was ready to fight back with everything she had. The struggle that followed was desperate and chaotic, with Jessica using her psychology training and her natural survival instincts to resist Marcus's attempts to overpower her. She clawed at his face, attempted to grab his keys, and fought to prevent him from dragging her out of the car and into the warehouse where her chances of survival would be virtually zero. During the struggle, Jessica managed to activate the car's horn, creating a loud and continuous noise that might attract attention even in the isolated warehouse district. She also succeeded in breaking Marcus's grip on her arm and in positioning herself near the car's door handle, giving her a potential escape route if she could create enough of a distraction to give herself time to run. The breakthrough came when Jessica remembered that Marcus's phone, which was still connected to the Uber app and GPS system, was lying on the front seat where he had left it when he attacked her. If she could reach the phone and reactivate her own cellular service, she might be able to call for help or at least alert someone to her location. Using a combination of psychology and desperation, Jessica began talking to Marcus in a way that was designed to confuse and distract him, while she positioned herself to grab his phone. She spoke to him as if she understood his motivations and was willing to cooperate, buying herself precious seconds to plan her next move. "You don't really want to hurt me," Jessica said, trying to project calm confidence while inching toward the front seat. "You're angry about something else, and I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time. We can figure this out without anyone getting hurt." Marcus hesitated, perhaps surprised by Jessica's apparent willingness to engage with him psychologically, rather than simply fighting or pleading. The momentary confusion gave Jessica the opportunity she needed to lunge forward and grab his phone, which she immediately used to dial 911, while simultaneously trying to restart her own phone's cellular connection. The 911 call connected just as Marcus realized what Jessica had done and renewed his attempts to overpower her. But Jessica's psychology training had taught her how to communicate efficiently in crisis situations, and she was able to provide the emergency dispatcher with crucial information about her location and situation in the few seconds before Marcus succeeded in ending the call. Austin 911, this is Jessica Martinez. I've been kidnapped by a fake Uber driver. We're at an abandoned warehouse complex on the east side of the city near Riverside Drive. The car is a silver Honda Accord. License plate number. Jessica managed to relay most of the essential information before Marcus grabbed the phone and smashed it against the car's interior. But the damage had been done from Marcus's perspective. Jessica had successfully contacted law enforcement and had provided them with enough information to begin tracking her location and initiating a rescue response. Marcus now faced a choice between escalating his attack on Jessica and fleeing the scene before police could arrive. Marcus chose to flee, abandoning his car and Jessica at the warehouse complex and running into the darkness of the industrial area. His decision to leave Jessica behind rather than silencing her permanently was possibly influenced by his realization that law enforcement was now aware of the situation and that any further violence would only increase the severity of the charges he would face if apprehended. Jessica remained in the abandoned car for nearly 20 minutes before police arrived, using the time to document everything she could remember about Marcus, his vehicle, and the route they had taken to reach the warehouse. Her psychology training proved invaluable in helping her maintain emotional control and gather evidence that would be crucial for the investigation and prosecution of her attacker. The police response was immediate and comprehensive, involving multiple units, detectives, and specialists trained in rideshare-related crimes. Jessica's detailed account of her ordeal provided investigators with substantial evidence about Marcus's methods and planning, revealing that her case was likely not an isolated incident but part of a pattern of predatory behavior. The investigation into Marcus's activities revealed that he had been operating a sophisticated scheme to exploit the Uber platform for criminal purposes. He had created multiple fake driver accounts using stolen identities and had been targeting young women traveling alone during late-night hours. His methods included using signal jammers to prevent victims from calling for help and scouting isolated locations where he could take victims without being detected. Most disturbing of all, the investigation revealed that Jessica was not Marcus's first victim. Police found evidence linking him to at least 6 other rideshare-related kidnappings over the previous 8 months, including 2 cases where victims had never been found. The discovery that Jessica had survived an encounter with a serial predator who had been using the Uber platform to access victims made her case a priority for federal law enforcement agencies. The FBI became involved in the investigation due to the interstate nature of Marcus's crimes and his use of technology to facilitate kidnapping and potentially murder. Federal agents discovered that Marcus was part of a larger network of criminals who were exploiting rideshare platforms to identify and target victims across multiple states, sharing information about victims and methods through encrypted communication channels. Marcus was apprehended 3 days after Jessica's escape, when facial recognition technology identified him at a gas station in Houston, Texas. He was found to be carrying false identification documents, additional signal jamming equipment, and detailed notes about potential victims he had been observing through various rideshare platforms. The arrest and prosecution of Marcus revealed the extent to which rideshare platforms could be exploited by criminals with technical knowledge and criminal intent. His case led to significant changes in Uber's safety protocols, including enhanced background checking procedures, real-time ride monitoring systems, and improved methods for verifying driver identities and preventing account fraud. Jessica's survival and her detailed documentation of Marcus's methods proved crucial in identifying and protecting other potential victims. Her psychology training and her ability to remain calm and analytical during a life-threatening situation had not only saved her own life but had also provided law enforcement with the evidence needed to stop a serial predator and dismantle a criminal network. But Jessica's ordeal was just one example of how rideshare platforms had become hunting grounds for predators who understood how to exploit the trust and convenience that made these services popular with millions of users. Her case was part of a growing pattern of rideshare-related crimes that revealed fundamental vulnerabilities in the gig economy's approach to safety and security. The investigation into Marcus's network led to the discovery of similar operations in cities across the United States, where criminals were using fake driver accounts to gain access to victims who believed they were using legitimate transportation services. The sophistication of these operations and their success in evading detection for extended periods raised serious questions about the safety measures that rideshare companies had implemented to protect their users. 6 months after Jessica's kidnapping, another case emerged in Miami, Florida, that would reveal even more disturbing aspects of how rideshare platforms could be exploited by organized criminal enterprises. This case involved multiple victims and a level of coordination that suggested that rideshare-related crimes were becoming increasingly sophisticated and organized. Angela Rodriguez was a 26-year-old nurse working the night shift at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami. Like many healthcare workers, she relied on rideshare services to get to and from work during hours when public transportation was limited and when parking at the hospital was expensive and potentially unsafe. Angela had been using Uber regularly for over 2 years without incident, and she trusted the platform's safety features and driver verification systems. On a humid Thursday night in June 2021, Angela requested an Uber ride from the hospital to her apartment in the Brickell area of Miami. She had just completed a particularly exhausting 12-hour shift in the emergency department and was looking forward to getting home, taking a shower, and sleeping before her next shift began in 10 hours. The ride request was accepted by a driver named Carlos, whose profile showed a 5-star rating and over 2,000 completed trips. The photo showed a middle-aged Hispanic man with a friendly smile, and his vehicle was listed as a white Toyota Camry. Angela felt confident about the ride based on the driver's excellent ratings and extensive experience on the platform. When the white Toyota pulled up to the hospital's rideshare pickup area, Angela verified the license plate and approached the vehicle. The driver matched the photo in the app and he confirmed her name before she got into the back seat. Everything appeared normal and routine as they began the drive toward Angela's apartment building, but as they traveled through downtown Miami, Angela began to notice that other passengers were already in the vehicle. 2 men who were sitting in the front passenger seat and behind the driver. This was unusual, as Uber rides were typically individual trips, unless specifically booked as shared rides, which Angela had not requested. "Excuse me," Angela said. "I think there might be some confusion. I booked an individual ride, not a shared trip." Carlos glanced at her in the rearview mirror and smiled in a way that made Angela immediately uncomfortable. "Don't worry about it," he said. "These are my friends. They won't bother you." But Angela was very much bothered by the presence of additional passengers who shouldn't have been in her rideshare vehicle. She checked her phone to confirm that she had indeed booked an individual ride, not a shared trip, and that there was no mention of other passengers in her trip details. As the car continued through downtown Miami, Angela noticed that they were not following the route displayed in her app, and were instead driving toward areas of the city that she didn't recognize. The other passengers in the car had not spoken since Angela had gotten in, but she could feel them watching her in a way that made her increasingly anxious about her situation. "I think we're going the wrong way," Angela said, trying to keep her voice calm and professional. "My apartment is in Brickell and we seem to be heading toward Little Havana." "We need to make a quick stop first," Carlos replied. "It won't take long." The words sent alarm bells ringing in Angela's mind, as she realized that she was in a vehicle with multiple men who were deviating from her requested route, and who were taking her to an unknown location for an unspecified purpose. Her medical training had taught her to recognize dangerous situations and to trust her instincts when something felt wrong, and everything about this ride felt very wrong. Angela attempted to use her phone to call for help but discovered that her cellular service was being blocked, just as Jessica Martinez had experienced in Austin. The presence of signal jamming equipment indicated that this was a planned operation rather than a spontaneous crime, and that the men in the vehicle had experience with kidnapping and victim control. As the car turned into an industrial area near the Miami River, Angela realized that she was facing a situation that could easily result in her death or disappearance. The area they were entering was isolated and dark, with numerous abandoned buildings and waterfront access that could be used to dispose of evidence or victims. Angela's medical training included emergency response procedures and crisis management, but she had never imagined needing to apply those skills to her own survival in a kidnapping situation. She tried to remain calm and analytical while preparing for whatever action might be necessary to escape or survive her ordeal. The car stopped in front of a warehouse that appeared to be abandoned, but which showed signs of recent use, including fresh tire tracks in the dirt and evidence that the loading dock had been recently accessed. Angela could see lights inside the building, suggesting that it was being used as a base of operations for whatever criminal activities the men were involved in. "Get out of the car," Carlos ordered, and the other two men positioned themselves to prevent Angela from refusing or attempting to flee. She realized that she was facing three criminals who had used the Uber platform to kidnap her and who had brought her to a location where they could carry out their plans without interference or detection. Angela's survival instincts kicked in as she assessed her options and the resources available to her. As a nurse, she carried medical supplies and equipment that could potentially be used for self-defense, and her knowledge of human anatomy gave her advantages in knowing how to incapacitate attackers effectively. When Carlos reached for her arm to force her out of the vehicle, Angela struck him with a medical implement that she had retrieved from her work bag, targeting pressure points that would cause maximum pain and disorientation. The unexpected counterattack gave her the opportunity to break free from his grip and to create enough chaos to prevent the other men from immediately restraining her. Angela ran toward the street, screaming for help and hoping to reach an area where other people might hear her or where passing vehicles might provide assistance. But the industrial area was isolated, and her captors were pursuing her with the determination of criminals who understood that their freedom depended on preventing her from escaping and reporting their activities. The chase through the dark streets of the industrial district lasted for nearly 15 minutes, with Angela using her knowledge of the area and her physical conditioning to stay ahead of her pursuers while looking for opportunities to call for help or to reach safety. Her medical training had included physical fitness requirements that proved crucial in maintaining her stamina during the extended pursuit. Angela's escape came when she reached a 24-hour truck stop on the edge of the industrial area, where she was able to alert security personnel and call law enforcement before her captors could reach her. The truck stop's location on a major highway meant that there were multiple witnesses and that police response would be rapid and comprehensive. The police investigation into Angela's kidnapping revealed that she had been targeted by an organized criminal network that was using rideshare platforms to identify and kidnap healthcare workers, who were then trafficked to other locations or held for ransom. The criminals had specifically chosen to target medical professionals because of their steady income, their access to pharmaceutical supplies, and their reluctance to engage in activities that might jeopardize their professional licenses. The investigation also revealed that the warehouse where Angela had been taken was being used as a processing center for multiple criminal activities, including human trafficking, drug distribution, and identity theft. The sophisticated nature of the operation and its integration with rideshare platforms indicated that criminals were rapidly adapting to exploit the vulnerabilities of new technologies and business models. Federal law enforcement agencies became involved in the investigation due to the interstate nature of the trafficking operation and the use of technology to facilitate serious crimes. The FBI discovered that similar networks were operating in major cities across the United States, using rideshare platforms to access victims who trusted the safety measures and verification systems that these companies claimed to provide. The arrest of Carlos and his associates led to the discovery of a criminal network that had been operating for over 3 years and had victimized dozens of people across multiple states. The organization had developed sophisticated methods for creating fake driver accounts, manipulating rideshare algorithms, and identifying potential victims based on their travel patterns and personal information. Angela's escape and her detailed account of the criminal operation provided law enforcement with crucial evidence about the network's methods and structure. Her medical training and professional background had given her advantages in surviving the kidnapping attempt and in providing investigators with accurate and useful information about her captors and their activities. The prosecution of the criminal network resulted in federal charges for kidnapping, human trafficking, and conspiracy, with sentences ranging from 25 years to life in prison for the main organizers. The case also led to congressional hearings about rideshare safety and to new federal regulations requiring enhanced background checking and real-time monitoring of rideshare activities. But even as law enforcement agencies worked to dismantle these criminal networks, new cases continued to emerge that revealed additional vulnerabilities in rideshare systems and new methods that criminals were developing to exploit these platforms for predatory purposes. In Chicago, Illinois, a case emerged that revealed how criminals were using rideshare platforms not just to access individual victims, but to gather intelligence about potential targets for burglary, identity theft, and other property crimes. This case demonstrated that rideshare-related crimes were expanding beyond direct physical violence to include sophisticated schemes that exploited the personal information and behavioral patterns that rideshare users unknowingly shared with drivers. Detective Sarah Kim of the Chicago Police Department had been investigating a series of burglaries in upscale neighborhoods that seemed to involve inside knowledge about the victims' schedules, security systems, and valuable possessions. The burglaries were sophisticated and selective, targeting homes when residents were away for extended periods and focusing on specific items that would be valuable but difficult to trace. The breakthrough in the investigation came when one of the burglary victims, Michael Chen, a successful attorney, realized that his home had been robbed just 2 days after he had taken an Uber ride, during which he had conducted a detailed phone conversation about his upcoming business trip. During the ride, Michael had discussed his travel dates, his home security system, and even mentioned specific valuable items that he owned, all within earshot of his Uber driver. Michael reported his suspicions to Detective Kim, who began investigating whether there might be connections between rideshare drivers and the recent string of burglaries. What she discovered was a criminal network that had recruited rideshare drivers to gather intelligence about passengers who might be potential targets for various types of crimes. The network had developed a system where drivers would engage passengers in conversations designed to extract useful information about their homes, their schedules, their financial situations, and their security measures. Drivers were trained to ask seemingly innocent questions that would reveal when passengers would be traveling, whether they lived alone, and what kinds of valuable possessions they might own. The information gathered during rideshare trips was then passed to criminal associates who would use it to plan burglaries, identity theft schemes, and other crimes that required advanced knowledge about victims and their vulnerabilities. The rideshare drivers received a percentage of the profits from these crimes in exchange for their intelligence-gathering services. Detective Kim's investigation revealed that this network had been operating for over 2 years and had victimized hundreds of rideshare passengers across the Chicago metropolitan area. The criminals had been particularly successful because their intelligence gathering was conducted in a context where passengers felt safe and were willing to share personal information without considering the potential consequences. The sophistication of the operation and its success in evading detection for an extended period demonstrated how criminals were adapting their methods to exploit the new opportunities created by the gig economy and mobile technology. The integration of rideshare platforms with criminal enterprises represented a significant evolution in how organized crime could access and exploit victims. The arrest and prosecution of the Chicago network led to federal charges for conspiracy, racketeering, and organized criminal activity. The case revealed that similar operations were likely active in other major cities, using rideshare platforms as intelligence-gathering tools for criminal enterprises that extended far beyond simple theft and burglary. These cases represented just a small sample of the ways in which rideshare platforms had become exploitation tools for criminals who understood how to manipulate the trust and convenience that made these services popular with millions of users. The pattern of rideshare-related crimes revealed fundamental vulnerabilities in how these platforms verified drivers, monitored rides, and protected passenger information. Law enforcement agencies across the United States began developing specialized units trained to investigate rideshare-related crimes and to work with technology companies to improve safety measures and detection systems. The federal government also initiated programs to educate rideshare users about potential risks and safety measures that could reduce their vulnerability to criminal exploitation. But perhaps the most disturbing case emerged in Las Vegas, Nevada, where investigators discovered that rideshare platforms were being used not just by individual criminals or small networks, but by organized crime syndicates that were integrating these services into large-scale criminal enterprises involving drugs, weapons, and human trafficking. The Las Vegas case began when FBI agents investigating organized crime activities noticed unusual patterns in rideshare usage data that suggested these platforms were being used to coordinate criminal activities and to transport illegal goods and services throughout the city. The investigation revealed a level of criminal sophistication and organization that far exceeded anything that had been discovered in previous rideshare-related cases. Special Agent Maria Rodriguez of the FBI's Las Vegas field office had been tracking the activities of a suspected organized crime family that appeared to be using legitimate businesses as fronts for illegal operations. The investigation had focused on traditional organized crime activities such as money laundering, extortion, and illegal gambling. But agents began to notice that rideshare services were playing an unexpected role in the organization's operations. The breakthrough came when federal agents conducting surveillance of suspected criminals observed that they were using rideshare services to transport packages, conduct meetings, and coordinate activities in ways that seemed designed to avoid detection by law enforcement. The criminals appeared to be using the anonymity and convenience of rideshare platforms to conduct business that would have been much more difficult to carry out using traditional transportation methods. The FBI's investigation revealed that the organized crime family had recruited a network of rideshare drivers who were knowingly participating in criminal activities in exchange for substantial payments that far exceeded what they could earn through legitimate rideshare services. These drivers were being used to transport drugs, weapons, and money throughout Las Vegas and to nearby cities, taking advantage of the fact that rideshare vehicles were rarely stopped or searched by law enforcement. The criminal organization had also developed methods for using rideshare platforms to coordinate meetings between criminals, to transport victims of human trafficking, and to conduct surveillance of law enforcement activities and potential targets. The integration of rideshare services into organized crime operations represented a significant evolution in how criminal enterprises could operate while avoiding detection. The scope and sophistication of the Las Vegas operation indicated that organized crime groups were rapidly adapting to exploit new technologies and business models in ways that law enforcement agencies were not prepared to detect or prevent. The use of rideshare platforms by organized crime represented a fundamental challenge to traditional law enforcement methods and required new approaches to investigation and prosecution. The federal investigation into the Las Vegas organized crime family lasted for over 18 months and involved cooperation between multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, DEA, ATF, and local police departments. The investigation used advanced surveillance techniques, financial analysis, and technology forensics to map the criminal organization and to gather evidence of their activities. The results of the investigation were staggering in their scope and implications for rideshare safety and security. The organized crime family had recruited over 200 rideshare drivers to participate in their criminal activities, had transported millions of dollars worth of illegal goods using rideshare vehicles, and had used rideshare platforms to coordinate criminal activities across multiple states. The criminal organization had also been using rideshare platforms to identify and recruit new victims for human trafficking, targeting vulnerable individuals who were using these services and who could be manipulated or coerced into criminal activities. The integration of rideshare services into human trafficking operations represented one of the most disturbing aspects of the case and highlighted the need for enhanced safety measures and victim protection programs. The prosecution of the Las Vegas organized crime family resulted in federal charges for over 300 individuals, including rideshare drivers, criminal associates, and victims who had been coerced into participating in illegal activities. The case led to the largest organized crime prosecution in Nevada history and resulted in sentences ranging from probation to life in prison for the main organizers. The Las Vegas case also led to significant changes in how federal law enforcement agencies approached organized crime investigations, with new recognition that traditional criminal enterprises were rapidly adapting to exploit new technologies and business models. The FBI established new units specifically trained to investigate technology-enabled organized crime and to work with technology companies to develop detection and prevention systems. The rideshare companies themselves were forced to acknowledge that their platforms had been exploited by criminals in ways that they had not anticipated or prepared for. Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare services implemented new safety measures, including enhanced background checking, real-time ride monitoring, and improved cooperation with law enforcement agencies. But the implementation of these safety measures revealed additional challenges and limitations in how rideshare platforms could be secured against criminal exploitation. The business model of these services, which depended on rapid growth, minimal barriers to entry, and user convenience, created inherent vulnerabilities that were difficult to address without fundamentally changing how these platforms operated. The ongoing challenge of rideshare safety was illustrated by a case that emerged in Phoenix, Arizona, where investigators discovered that criminals were using sophisticated technology to hack into rideshare systems and to manipulate these platforms in ways that allowed them to access victims and avoid detection by safety measures. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a cybersecurity expert working with the Phoenix Police Department, had been investigating reports of rideshare rides that seemed to involve drivers and vehicles that didn't exist in the platform's official records. Passengers were reporting rides with drivers whose accounts couldn't be verified and who were using vehicles that weren't registered with the rideshare services. The investigation revealed that criminals had developed methods for hacking into rideshare systems and creating phantom driver accounts that could accept ride requests and access passenger information without being subject to the platform's safety measures and verification procedures. These phantom accounts allowed criminals to operate as rideshare drivers while avoiding background checks, vehicle inspections, and other safety requirements. The sophistication of the hacking operation indicated that the criminals involved had substantial technical expertise and resources, suggesting that rideshare-related crimes were attracting individuals and organizations with advanced technological capabilities. The ability to manipulate rideshare systems at the software level represented a significant escalation in the types of threats that these platforms faced. Dr. Walsh's investigation also revealed that the hackers were selling access to rideshare systems to other criminals, creating a marketplace for phantom driver accounts that could be used for various criminal purposes. The commercialization of rideshare hacking represented a new form of cybercrime that combined technology exploitation with traditional predatory activities. The Phoenix hacking case led to federal cybercrime charges and to enhanced cybersecurity measures by rideshare companies. But it also highlighted the ongoing cat-and-mouse game between criminals and technology companies in the rapidly evolving landscape of digital crime. The case demonstrated that rideshare safety was not just a matter of better background checks and driver verification, but also required sophisticated cybersecurity measures to protect against technological exploitation. As law enforcement agencies and rideshare companies worked to address these emerging threats, new cases continued to emerge that revealed additional vulnerabilities and criminal innovations. The pattern of rideshare-related crimes showed that criminals were rapidly adapting their methods to exploit new opportunities and to stay ahead of safety measures and law enforcement responses. The cumulative impact of these cases was a fundamental change in how Americans thought about rideshare safety and the risks associated with app-based transportation services. The convenience and accessibility that had made rideshare services popular also created new opportunities for criminals to access victims in ways that were previously impossible. Public awareness campaigns, enhanced safety features, and improved law enforcement responses helped to reduce some of the risks associated with rideshare services. But the fundamental challenge remained: how to maintain the convenience and accessibility of these platforms while protecting users from sophisticated criminals who were constantly developing new methods of exploitation. The stories of Jessica Martinez, Angela Rodriguez, Michael Chen, and the many other victims of rideshare-related crimes served as cautionary tales about the hidden dangers of the gig economy and the importance of maintaining awareness and caution even when using services that were designed to be safe and convenient. These cases also highlighted the broader implications of how technology was changing the landscape of crime and victim access, with criminals adapting to exploit new platforms and business models as quickly as they were developed. The rideshare industry's response to these challenges would likely serve as a model for how other technology companies would need to address similar security and safety issues as the digital economy continued to evolve. The ongoing evolution of rideshare-related crimes and the continuous development of new safety measures represented a dynamic challenge that required constant vigilance from users, technology companies, and law enforcement agencies. The convenience of summoning transportation with a smartphone tap had created new freedoms and opportunities, but it had also opened new pathways for predators to access and exploit victims. The real horror of these rideshare stories was not just the individual crimes that had been committed, but the realization that the technology designed to make transportation safer and more convenient had also created new opportunities for criminals to access victims in ways that were previously impossible. The challenge for society was to find ways to preserve the benefits of these technological innovations while minimizing the risks they created for public safety. The documented cases of rideshare-related crimes represented only the tip of the iceberg, as many incidents likely went unreported or were not recognized as being connected to rideshare platforms. The true scope of rideshare-related criminal activity might never be fully known, but the cases that had been documented provided important insights into how criminals were adapting to exploit new technologies and how users and companies could work together to reduce these risks. The evolution of rideshare safety measures and law enforcement responses to rideshare-related crimes would continue to be an ongoing process, with new challenges and solutions emerging as technology continued to change how people lived, worked, and traveled in the modern world. The lessons learned from these horror stories would be crucial in shaping how society balanced the benefits of technological innovation with the need to protect public safety and individual security. Have you ever felt unsafe during a rideshare trip? Have you noticed suspicious behavior from drivers or encountered situations that made you question your safety? If these real accounts of rideshare-related crimes have opened your eyes to the hidden dangers that can lurk behind the convenience of app-based transportation, subscribe to our channel for more investigations into how modern technology creates new opportunities for predators and criminals. Share your own rideshare experiences or safety concerns in the comments below. Your awareness and vigilance could help protect other users from becoming the next victims of those who exploit our trust in digital platforms.